All right, man, welcome back to the God Center Men's Recovery Show. I am your host, Tim Holloway, and I'm glad to be back at you again. If you're new here, what we're doing is we're going through the book of Proverbs and we're gleaning wisdom for this recovery journey and for this discipleship life. This is a show dedicated to Christian men inside of recovery to live an awesome spirit-filled life. If that is your desire, then you've definitely come to the right place. So we're going to dive right in. This is the recovery quote of the day. It says, recovery is about progression, not perfection. I really love this quote, and it means a lot to me. I think, when we think of progress, we think of forward movement, one step at a time, and we think of advancement. And so if I were to tell you, what is this recovery journey all about? What is this freedom that we're walking in? What is it really all about? It's about progress, right? Progress is forward movement, advancement, one step at a time. And that is the mindset of growth. And that is that I am going to be the man that grows. I'm going to be the man that develops, and I'm going to be the man that advances inside of recovery. Now, many people get sober and they stop using drugs and they stop their addictions of pornography and this, that, and the other thing. And it's very white knuckling it. And what I mean by that is that all they do is focus on avoiding the evil, avoiding the temptation, avoiding the different things that cause them to stumble and fall. Not understanding that the mind should shift to something different, and that is to forward progress, and that I'm beginning to make advancements in the different areas of my life. 2 Corinthians 3:18 says this, but we all with unveiled face are beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord, and we are changed or transformed into that same image from glory to glory. And this is the way that I view recovery. And that is that I'm going from one state of glory to the next, to the next, to the next. And it's no fun to stay in the same state and condition, right? And the reality is that when we first started this journey, we were in a very pitiful state. As far as our body, as far as our finances, as far as our relationships. If you've been down to the depths of addiction, you know that it deteriorates all these areas of your life. And so when we start this journey, we start pretty much with a clean slate, right? And there's not much positivity going on. We're much just like an infant, and we're starting out this journey on a growth to maturity. And that maturity happens here a little, there a little, progressing forward from glory to glory. Job says this. This is really, really powerful scripture. 17:9 in the book of Job. It says, nevertheless, the righteous will hold on to his way, and he who has clean hands will grow stronger and stronger. And I think looking back throughout my life, the feeling that I get is one of progression, and that I am not the man who I was a year ago. I'm not the man who I was 6 months ago, and I'm definitely not the man that I was 4 years ago, right? And so looking at it is like, have I progressed? Have I grown? Have I matured any during this process of time? And I find a lot of satisfaction, a lot of fulfillment looking at myself and saying, I don't even recognize the man that I was 6 months to a year ago. And this is really what the recovery journey is all about. And so the detriment in this is that staying the same. And that is quitting your addiction and staying the same, not growing in love, not growing in peace, not growing in wisdom, and not really progressing forward and just kind of staying in that state and condition. That's definitely not where we want to be. The last scripture about this progression is really powerful. Ephesians 4:15. But speaking the truth in love, that we may grow up in all aspects unto him who is the head, even Christ. And so this has the idea of growing up. And when we first start the recovery journey, we're very in a dependent state, much like an infant, right? We need to be fed, we need to be changed, we're messing ourselves, we're doing all these different things, and we need a lot of care, we need a lot of help, and so forth. And so that is the state in which we start. Now, as we move forward and we progress, we grow, we mature, we begin to walk. and that is we stop messing ourselves and we begin to make forward steps and we begin to make progress, right? And so that is this concept of really beginning to growing up. So this is what recovery is all about, and not perfection. Now, perfection is something different, right? If you come from a perfectionist household where you're not allowed to fail, and you have to strive to be perfect and maintain the image and keep up with the Joneses and all these different things, then you really understand the perfection mindset. You really get what I'm talking about here. But when we take that into relationship with God and say, you know what, I'm going to take on this perfection mindset, then we adopt this weird relationship with God where He only accepts us if we're perfect. And that He can't look upon our frailties, or He's not accustomed to weaknesses, and He hasn't in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin, and He's unrelatable, and He doesn't have any empathy, and He's very hard, He's demanding, and all of these things. That is a very detrimental relationship to be in. So understand this, that this recovery journey is about progression, forward movement, growth, and development, and not about being perfect. Because anybody who learns to walk has to crawl. And from the crawling stage to the walking stage, there's a lot of falling down. And there's a lot of messing yourself, right? And so it's important that we have grace during this process as we're learning to walk and as we're learning to make advancements. Powerful reality. So the recovery question of the day is this: is having goals important to recovery? I think objectives, setting your sight, seeing the future and beginning to make plans and preparations and put in the work to create the future that you want, I think it's a very, very powerful thing to do. Now, Jesus says this. He says, would you build a tower without first thinking about the cost? And would you go to war without first planning on whether you can win or what you would need to actually gain the victory? And when Jesus asked that question, the answer is, of course, is no. I wouldn't do that, right? I wouldn't go to war without planning. I wouldn't build a tower without plans and preparation and asking myself and counting the costs, right? Yeah, we do this all the time inside of our life. We do a lot of things without counting the cost. And we do a lot of things without really considering if we have enough resources and planning to actually carry this out. So the key thing is here is that Jesus definitely promotes planning, right? And having a little forethought and really counting the cost. But he goes a step farther and says that you get what you ask for. And to really ask for something, you have to want it, right? First of all, and you have to visualize that you can actually be in possession of what you're asking for. Okay, and so you have to see it mentally. You have to actually think that you can possess that which you are asking for. So that's first key. And he says that you have not because you ask not. This is what James said. You don't have, you don't possess because you do not ask. And when you do ask, you ask amiss, right? That you may consume it on your own lust. So we have two major problems in receiving from God. First, we don't ask. And that is, there hasn't been cultivated a heart and a desire inside of us to begin to pursue objectives and to begin to want something, right? That's the first problem. And then the second problem is that we only want it for status and for ego. And these are the two reasons why we don't receive anything, right? And so think about this, is that what do you want inside of your family? What do you want inside of your faith? What do you want inside of your body, your fitness? And what do you want inside of your finances? And are you willing to visualize and actually see yourself in possession of those things and begin to ask and begin to understand that the whole purpose about having a family life that is dynamic or having a faith that is thriving and growing in connection with God, that the purpose behind these things is for the kingdom. You see, all things are good depending on the desire we attach to it. and I'll explain what this means, is that having an awesome dynamic family, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Unless your desire is for status and for ego and to show off and say, look at how pristine and perfect my family is and blah, 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 then that becomes a religious facade. Now, the same thing with faith, that we can have this awesome knowledge and this faith and do all of these different things, but if it's all for the show, then it's not of any value. And so the motivation behind it must be in concrete stone, that it is not about the feeding of my ego, but it is about the building of the kingdom. It's all about the kingdom. And once we get those two things right, we begin to seek and desire the things that are good and beneficial for us, and we attach the motive to it and really get behind, this is all about the growth and expansion of his kingdom. Then it's an alignment, and then things begin to click. So that's powerful. It all has to do with setting objectives and goals inside of those areas of your life. So we are in Proverbs chapter 1, verse 2. I think we're finally going to progress here in the next couple days, and we're going to get out of verse 2, I promise. But we're still there, and we're still talking about knowing wisdom. So Proverbs chapter 1, verse 2 says this: to know wisdom and instruction, and to perceive the words of understanding. So we're talking about knowing wisdom, and knowing wisdom is knowing the things that are freely given to us by God. Now, I think within this, it's really important to understand the things that are not given to us by God, right? And that is in 2 Timothy 1:7, it says, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and of a sound mind. And so fear is not something that God has given us. That is wisdom. So we understand fully what is freely given to us by God, and we understand what is not. And so, and when we look out throughout the scriptures, we constantly see fear not, right? Fear not, little flock. It's the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Fear not, for I am with you. I will uphold you with the right hand of my righteousness. Be not dismayed, right? Though the waters may flood and all of this different stuff, fear not. And everything about the scripture in the Old Testament tells us not to fear. And so God has not given us a spirit of fear. And so here is wisdom, and that is fully grasping and understanding when I feel afraid that this is not somehow some emotion that is given to me by God. Now, fear is a normal response. We are biologically, of course, created that way. Our fight, flight, fear, freeze response, and it could be very beneficial to our survival in the past. Not so much today, right? Usually that feeling comes upon us when we are worried and we're scared about doing something. And so what my motto has always been is that I'm going to do it scared, right? I was a very timid kid. I was a very withdrawn. I was kind of like a beat puppy, right? Being in submission, like untrusting. I'm not, I'll come over, but then I'll run away. But, I have this whoop puppy syndrome. And so I had a lot of different fears and insecurities inside of my life. And I had to learn to do it scared. And that is everything that I was up against was a challenge that was bigger than me. And from going back to get my GED to even getting a job to going to court and getting emancipated and all these different things that I faced in my early teenage years, they were all very big and very scary. And that is each one of them I had to do scared. And so if you ask me what should we do with fear, I would say, recognize that fear is present, and begin to press through the fear and say, have a deep determination and a grit inside of your life that says, you know what? I feel scared, but I'm going to do it scared. Because here's what people do. They feel the feelings of fear. And what does fear do? Fear controls, fear manipulates. here's a 100% fact that you can guarantee, okay? If somebody is trying to make you scared, and that is to instill fear inside of your life, they are trying to control you, and they are trying to manipulate you. Now, this can be a form of a relationship that is very detrimental, right? And they're trying to instill fear and insecurity inside of you to get you to behave in a certain manner that lines up to what they want. And that's why they use fear and intimidation. Now, the society and the media and all of these different things, we call them fear mongers. And the reason is because they use fear and intimidation to get you to respond and behave in a certain manner, right? And we've seen this very recently when there was no food on the shelves and there was no toilet paper and all these different things. And there was messages, on Facebook that were going throughout the community and spreading viral that you need to run to the store and you need to get a lot of food because everything's going to be shut down. You're going to be locked down, right? And so they inspired all this fear and got everybody to run and do all these things, right? And what we got to understand is that whenever fear is present, it is to force you into a decision that is most likely contrary to the will of God. Okay? And they're trying to get you to do something. What is the main marketing tactic? I'm in marketing, so I know a little bit about marketing. It's to get in touch with people's fear and get in touch with their pain and begin to magnify the pain and then begin to be the solution to that pain, right? And this is nothing new. This is the mode of operation of the way society, the way money flows, is that to instill fear in you so I can get you to behave in a way that benefits me, and I could be the solution to your problem. What often takes place is the people who are the solution are actually the creators of your problem. So moving on, the spirit of fear is not from God, and it comes to motivate you to do and behave in a manner that is contrary to the will of God. Okay? So to be timid, that is to lack courage and self-confidence. Now think about that for a minute. If to be timid and to have fear is to lack courage and self-confidence, when have you ever seen God exhort men in the Bible to behave in such manner, right? In fact, he saw Elijah, he saw Joshua, he saw Moses, he saw, all these different characters inside the Bible that were in that state of lacking courage. They were in that state of lacking confidence. And he came and he built them up and he encouraged them and he said, you know what? Be of good courage. Right? I am your God. I will strengthen you and I will uphold you, and all these different things that he came with a message of hope and encouragement to build them up so they can face the obstacles that were in their way. But never have you seen a man of God come up against the obstacle and God comes to him to steal his courage and to take it away and to so he can lack the boldness and the determination to do something great, right? That's just not something God does. So understand this, is that obstacles are going to come your way. Inside of this recovery journey, there's one thing that is absolute, and that is obstacles. You are going to face challenge. You're going to face difficulties, and there's going to come feelings of fear, and you might get intimidated by something inside of a relationship that you need to discuss, and you need to be open about something, or you need to make restitution and make things right with somebody. And there's going to come situations that come in your life that are going to be scary. It might be getting real with another human being and talking about the nature of your defects of character and the pain and the consequences that they have caused your life. These things could be very scary. But the reality is that God will never take courage away from you. But he says this: be of good courage, have boldness, and have determination. Okay? That is an awesome reality. So fear creates dread. And the best way to understand this is that God pulled the children of Israel out of Egypt, and that is symbolic of us coming out of addiction, coming out of bondage, coming out of the chains, right? Coming out of being a slave to sin. And he takes us on this journey, and that journey is supposed to take us to the promised land, right? And so on the way in the path, they begin to grumble, they begin to fall fine, they begin to complain, they begin to say, why, God, have you delivered us from Egypt to bring us out in the wilderness, and we're just going to die, right? And then they begin to see the enemy. And the enemy begin to get big inside of their heart, inside of their mind, and they begin to view themselves as grasshoppers. And that is very small, very insignificant. And what begins to happen because of their point of view and their perception of themselves, what begins to happen is the courage begin to fade away, right? And dread begin to fill their hearts. And that unbelief kept them stuck in that state and condition and kept them from experiencing the abundant life and the promised land that was given to them. All they had to do is begin to have faith and begin to walk inside of that. And so fear causes dread, and it keeps us stuck. And it keeps us from making forward progress. So, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but He has given us. Remember, once again, wisdom is knowing the things that are freely given to us by God. And this is power, love, and a sound mind. Now, power is this ability of God. It is His abundance. It is His power and His force, right? And basically, it's the muscle. I like to consider it the muscle of God. And that is His ability to produce awesome things inside of your life. Now, God has given us power. And this word comes from dunamis. It's where we get our word dynamite. And this is the explosive power. But what it all comes down to is the ability to be able. And that is the ability to be able to walk in this recovery journey. Now, I want you to think of what your life, what your frame would look like. That is your family, faith, fitness, and finances. What your frame would look like if you fully believed that you had access to that dunamis power. What kind of marriage would you have if you knew that you had the ability to have a great marriage? What kind of spiritual life would you have if you really truly believed in the power of God and that you have the ability operating inside of you? You get where I'm going with this. God has given, past tense, right? He has not given us a spirit of fear, but He has given us a spirit of power, of love, and of a sound mind. What would your financial life look like if you knew without a reasonable doubt, if you had certainty that you had the power of God in that area? Great, right? No longer in lack. No longer struggling. And so this is the reality of this power, is that is meant to be in each area of our life. That dunamis power operating inside of our marriage, inside of our relationships, inside of our mental, our paradigms, our belief systems, our heart, and inside of our body, and inside of our finances. Power. Love. He has given us love. Now, love is an attachment. Love is a devotion. But ultimately, love is God. And the Bible says that love is God. Now, it's not that God has a little bit of love, though God does, so love the world that He gave. But His ultimate characteristic of who He is love. If you were to define God, God is love. And so it's what would love look like manifested inside of your brain? And that is inside of your family, faith, fitness, and first your family. If you thoroughly understood and you believe and you had certainty that God has given you a spirit of love, how would that manifest inside of your family? First of all, I firmly believe that you'd be less condemning. You'd be less judgmental. You'd be more supportive. You would have a lot of empathy and putting yourself in another person's shoes and begin to encourage, build, uplift, and construct, people. And if it happened inside of your marriage, the same thing would take place. You'd be far more patient. Now think about this. In 1 Corinthians, I believe it's 13 there, the love chapter, right? That love is patient, love is kind, and does not boast, and is not envious, and thinks not its own, and all of those things. That is a character representation of God. And God is love. And so at his core, that means that he is patient, and he doesn't seek his own, and all of these different things. And when that begins to operate inside of our lives, oh my God, when we take love inside of our frame, we are going to have some amazing results inside of our life. Let's take our faith. What would happen if we were certain that we had the spirit of love inside of our faith? Well, this devotion to God would be strong, and it would be powerful, and we'd have this attachment and this allegiance to him, right? That would create something awesome inside of our life. And also we would have this love for ourselves, that we begin to take care of ourselves mentally and spiritually and emotionally and relationally. And we'll begin to allow ourselves to begin to have our needs met, so we can begin to live in a holistic fashion, because we would begin to love ourselves. And lastly, of course, we would begin to love others. So what would love look like inside of our financial life? Well, I love myself so much, I'm going to make sure that there's enough in there to provide for my family, right? You see where I'm going with this. And lastly, this sound mind. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind. What would a sound mind look like inside of my frame? My family, faith, fitness, and finances. So a sound mind is this. It's kind of mistranslated a little bit. The King James kind of did that, but the other translations make sure to call it discipline and self-control. And that's what it actually means. Discipline and self-control, that I have the ability to control myself. What does that look like inside of my frame? How might my life benefit from having discipline and self-control inside of my marriage? You see, most marriages fall apart due to the lack of discipline and self-control, right? Especially, inside of addictions, that they're consuming pornography, and they're being secretive, and they have these secret addictions, and they're not being honest, and they're, all of this lack of vulnerability and no communication, and all of this springs from this negative dysfunction that has taken place inside of our lives. But if we had self-control inside of our marriage, what would that look like? Man, that would create an awesome, powerful marriage. What about self-control inside of our body? What would our bodies look like if we were certain of this manifestation, that we have the spirit of self-control operating inside of our life? Man, I look at these three ingredients, and the negative ingredient being eradicated from my life, the negative ingredient of fear, that I'm not going to be controlled and manipulated by fear, and that I'm going to do it scared, I'm going to move forward. But having these three powerful ingredients added to my life: power, love, and self-control and discipline. I can't think of anything else that I would need for this powerful, awesome life of recovery. Having a relationship with God and being infilled with the Spirit of the living God that gives me power, love, and self-control. What else do we need for success? That's powerful, brothers. Powerful. I'll see you soon. Peace.